Let's have a play with the 111 ScrawlrBox.
Hey Scrawlers, I'm Kat from ScrawlrBox and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to get into some of those tips and tricks using the 111 ScrawlrBox. Maybe something a little bit festive. Let's get into it.
This month's box featured Winsor & Newton Designer's Gouache, a highly requested supply from you lot. And as always, this month's zine featured tips and tricks on how to use these supplies, plus a few from the featured artist as well. Let's crack on, shall we? I'll be using the paper featured in this month's box, which was a cold pressed water paper that has a smooth surface, slightly textured. And I've got my 2 pots of water ready, a palette and some tissue. I thought before I dived into something creative, I'd show you a couple of tips first. This first one, mixing colours. As I mentioned in the intro, my little Santa hat, we're going to get a little festive with this one. So what I'm going to do is see how many pine greens I can create using the blue and yellow. You can make them warmer and darker depending on how much blue and yellow you add, and even if you put a little dab of that red in there, you can deepen that green slightly. Too much red and it will go brown. Might seem a little obvious, but doing mixing beforehand so you've got those greens in front of you means you're going to have a better idea of the kind of ratios you're going to want when you get into the real thing. You never know, you might mix up a colour you actually prefer instead of the one you had in mind. I've added in a bit more red for these final ones just to see the sort of browns I can create as well. A nice range of muted and brights to work with there. Also, before I start, I'm just going to test out the ratios of this paint. So I'm going to add more water in as I go to see what kind of tones I can create. A little goes a long way, so even just using that paint water, I've got that little streak of reddy pink there. A few simple tips, but sometimes going back to basics really helps. Right, let's put them to use. I've got some cards here, so it's time to get festive and creative. Now I know what green I want to make, so I'm going to recreate that one. I'm going to use the angle of my paintbrush to make some marks. This paintbrush is a cat's tongue paintbrush, which has a really lovely shape to it that can create all sorts of different strokes, depending on how you hold it. I love a bit of mark making, and here's just 3 examples of different types of marks you can make to make a little Christmas tree. Let's put those ratios to use. I'm going to start by cleaning off my paintbrush first, using the dirty water to get rid of the paint, a tissue to wipe it off, and then dipping it into the clean water to wet my brush with a new colour. I want to incorporate the light, medium and dark into this one, and that dark one is using little to no water, so it's nice and opaque. Even though we've tested before, I always test on a page before I apply it to my actual work. That way I definitely know what the colour is I'm applying. Make sure you let each layer dry fully before applying the next layer to avoid any smudging and bleeding. The shape of this cat's tongue brush is coming into handy for all those little nooks and crannies in this shape. Super simple, super effective. You can of course use these paints straight from the tube like I did here to add a little minimalist star, and you can add in liner as well. Unipin, Signo, gel pen and liners work perfectly over this gouache.
And there we have it, some tips and tricks on how to use the gouache as featured in the 111 ScrawlrBox. Even though it's not a festive box, you can use it for some festive things. Hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, keep scrolling.
Merry Christmas!
Thank you, Scrawlrs, and we wish you all the best for this festive season. Hope you found this video useful. If you do give these little cards a try, let me know in the comments below. Even better, tag me.